Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Potter right in and goal. He scores. Oh my! What a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get it to it. Score!
The zone. Coyle dances in. Backhand score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host today, Caroline with a K, and our Boston Bruins road woes continue into the playoffs, where they've lost Game 1 to the Buffalo Sabres after only playing 55 minutes of a 60-minute game. But before I continue my rant, let's welcome in our guest co-host this week, Mary Beth. Welcome in.
Thanks so much for having me. I was thinking that before the game last night. I was looking forward to it. Now I'm not so sure.
I know. So the funny part is, as you said before we started recording today, because today is the last day of Maria's fantastic vacation, that I get to play the role of Maria today and you get to be the optimistic, nice one. So this should be a fun change of pace for both of us. Certainly.
Somebody's got to play the role of Maria. She is well missed this morning.
Yes. And I'm going to do my best. But before we get even further into that nonsense, let's a little quick tour around the rink. Playoffs have started, obviously, since we last chatted. We've already had almost every single series kick off. We have just one more series that has yet to have a game 1. So today we are recording on Monday, April 20th, and the Oilers and the Ducks are the last ones to actually start the playoffs this evening at 10 p.m. Eastern. But everybody else has already gotten their feet wet. The excitement of the first day of the High Holy Days has happened. We've also had our first overtime for those new hockey fans. That is their baptism, so to speak. So what a wonderful experience for all those new folks joining us and joining the hockey community. And of course, it's no surprise that first overtime happened in the East. So, Mary Beth, any surprises thus far? I'm checking my chart. The Tampa Bay Lightning and the Habs played. That was our overtime game.
That game, actually, that was a little bit of a surprise. I'll tell you. And this pains me to say it. I am a Boston fan, number one. Let's be clear, but I'm also a huge hockey fan. Yes. And there is a part of me that's just rooting for Montreal. That younger Habs team, they haven't had success. Their tails off this year. And quite frankly, because of recency bias, I hate the Lightning a little more than the Canadians right now. In my soul, we don't love the Canadians here in Boston.
We had a great conversation in our Discord yesterday because we've been watching all of the games. It's a great hockey conversation if you want to join us. But we had this whole conversation where, is there ever a time when a Boston Bruins fan, or vice versa, if you're a Habs fan, because I had this conversation on Threads with some folks too, is it ever acceptable to root for the Habs? And we've decided that there is one circumstance and one circumstance only, and that is when there is the possibility that the two teams could meet in a playoff round. So this is the one exception. And we've said this on our podcast many times. We are also hockey fans, and it's just good for business when the Bruins, traditional rivals, do really well. The Leafs have been that villain for probably the last, 25 years. And it's now Montreal's turn. And to your point, this is a young team. They've been working towards this for a number of seasons. Last year, I believe it was the first time they'd made it into the playoffs with this new core, with this retooling, rebuild, whatever it is that they're calling it. They squeaked in last year. This year, they came in with a much firmer hold on the situation. And I think that they are going to be a harder out. but also they're playing a team from Florida, and screw Tampa.
That's what it boils down to. We do not want a team from Florida to continue to advance. That's where we live. Florida is the Achilles heel of the Bruins. Both teams, both Tampa and Florida Panthers, just have our number. And so if we can get them knocked out, then I can happily root for Montreal because I'd like to knock out Tampa.
Yeah. Look, also, as a hockey fan, my fear is that this season playoffs result in a Stanley Cup final that is, again, a copy-paste of 2022. Now, I know you would not be too mad about that because Colorado's your West Coast team. However, considering the last 5 years, there hasn't been that much diversity in who is making it to that final, and I am tired. I am bored of a Florida team in the Stanley Cup final because you had Florida, the Panthers, for the last 3 years, and then prior to that, you had Tampa Bay for 3 years. So little bit over it. And I don't want to see the same matchups anymore. I'm sorry, Edmonton. I don't want to see you in the cup final. I can't. I don't want to see Colorado versus Tampa Bay. If Colorado makes it, fine. But please, God, then don't let it be Tampa.
Now, I have to agree with you. Now, I still am okay with seeing Edmonton in the finals. As we know, they're my third team, but I would prefer Colorado over that. I do also think, just from a business perspective, it's better for the sport if we're spreading out the wealth, if we've got more fan bases engaged, if we've got more teams doing great things. I think a lot of people get bored seeing the same teams over and over making it to the finals. It is interesting in this world of the salary cap, with so much parity around the league, that the same teams keep making it. I find that fascinating on a whole bunch of levels. Just, again, as a hockey observer, as somebody who is a fan of the sport in general.
Yeah.
I just find that really interesting.
And I will say, the one thing I will give Tampa, their fans, over Florida Panthers is, and I've been to a game in Tampa, they are better hockey fans. I don't know if it's just because it's more well established. I don't know what it is, but at least they've got a better fan base. They actually go to the games. But that being said, that's just the first game. We also had a Carolina-Ottawa kickoff for the series. I think that there was no surprise in regard to the outcome of that. I was a little surprised that it was a shutout. Carolina won 2-0. They completely obliterated Ottawa with shots because that's their MO. That's how they function. Ottawa also is a team that this is their second year getting in after attempting to come back, actually build on anything. That's the interesting thing, actually, about this particular playoff season. When looking at both sides of the bracket, you have, obviously, Buffalo, first time in a long time, so they're new this year to the bracket. Pittsburgh is new this year to the bracket, first time in 3 years. I don't think Philadelphia was in last year, so they're new this year. But then you also have Boston is new this year, and Montreal and Ottawa this is only their second time. So you really only have Tampa and Carolina as repeats from last year, which I think, again, great for business. And it's a similar thing out west. Pittsburgh-Philly game. Did you catch this game?
Oh, I sure did.
Yeah, you did.
I pretty much watch as much as I can every playoff game.
Absolutely.
It's an exhausting time of year. I actually, for those of you who follow my socials, you've seen my post. I think NHL put it out, but it was a picture of the Stanley Cup. Do you have plans this weekend? I have plans until June.
I'm busy every night till the cup final because there's hockey every night.
Now, for people who followed me, my origin story, it started with the Flyers. It started in the 70s when the Flyers were winning the Stanley Cup. That's my hockey origin story. So there's a part of me that really roots for the Flyers, low key underground there. But I think there's this other part of me that always roots for Sid. So how do you not? Now, again, my Philly people, I get it. They're not rooting for Sid, but the guy deserves another cup. I wouldn't be sad if he got another cup. I would, because it would be at our peril. But also I root for Sid. Yes. I think that he has carried that team on his back. I think the fact that they made the playoffs is amazing. But you watch that game and geez Louise, how could you not root for the Flyers in that game? They came out with so much energy and so much enthusiasm, and they were just amazing. amazing to watch. That is the kind of a game that you can just watch as a hockey fan and enjoy the game. Because I don't really have a dog in the fight. I will always find something to like on almost every team.
It's great to watch a game like that. Again, we were joking, I think last night, where we're like, oh, I forgot. This is how it feels to be stressed out during this time of year, because last year was the first time in a long time that all of us were just watching all the hockey and enjoying it and like, oh, this is not stressful at all. But watching, that's one of the wonderful parts about what I like to call the high holy days of hockey, because you can consume so much hockey. And if your team is in it, you're not going to be stressed by every single game that you watch. Because for me, if I had more free time during this regular season, I would watch more other games. I have a pretty busy life schedule. I am just barely able to watch the 82 games that the Bruins play. So I can't take on more. But this is like the time of year where I get to watch all the hockey, and you get to really appreciate just how fun the sport is, especially when you've got rivals playing like the Pennsylvania teams. I will say my one observation, because I try to stay generally informed, but again, without actually watching these games, sometimes you just don't know how a team plays in real life outside of when they play the Bruins. But I think this Pittsburgh team, they're obviously very elite. They've got some young blood in there, but they're really being driven by their core. Unfortunately, their core is older, and compared to Philadelphia, they are a lot younger and just have that special something that you see with these really young, quote unquote, kid teams, like you see with San Jose or you see with Anaheim. You see it in Philadelphia. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't know who I'm rooting for. I love Sid, but I think Philadelphia is really fun to watch. They've got Porter Martone. He literally has played 9 regular season games. He had 10 points already, which blew my mind when I saw that stat. And to watch him play, I literally said out loud as I'm watching, oh my God, what did I just see?
He was a star.
What?
Not even a star in the making. That kid is a star. And that was the debate with this particular series was, is it going to be this experience of the Penguins against this inexperience of the Flyers? And how's that going to win out? For the first game anyway, it's always going to be goaltending. It's the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup is all based on goaltending. Without a good goaltender, you're out.
Fortunately, Stu Skinner.
Yeah.
If Pittsburgh had a good goalie, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a deep run. I could not imagine them going super far with Skinner. But then again, I don't know. He did it with Edmonton.
The finals last couple
But
years.
they couldn't ever win with him.
No, I agree. And I do think from watching that first game, we could see that, yeah, the Flyers have inexperienced players, but their play is aggressive.
Yes.
They follow through on stuff. And I think as you're watching that, they were organized and thoughtful in the way they were playing. And I think that's what people thought we weren't going to see. We're going to see a little more scattered, and we didn't see that.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch. Out west, again, I missed the Vegas and Utah game, although I believe I saw a fantastic little clip that they scored on their own goal.
Yeah.
Have the day you deserve, Carter Hart. And then the Dallas and Minnesota game, I did watch that. That was shocking and a little embarrassing, I have to say.
Very surprising. That was one of the games I thought was going to be one of the series that I thought was going to be fairly well matched.
Yes.
I thought we were going to be seeing a little bit more back and forth there, a little bit more of either team could take this. And that is not at all what we saw.
No, they do seem to struggle with stopping the rush in the neutral zone. And I was reminded of that fact when the Bruins played Dallas not too long ago. Boston did a fantastic job of taking over that game. And at the time, I think we all thought that's just because Dallas was already in the playoffs. How hard were they really trying? But then I was listening to someone talking about the preview, and they talked about how Boston has this ability to really control the neutral zone and then have these good zone entries. And that's exactly how they beat Dallas, because Dallas clearly struggles with that. And I didn't realize at the time when Boston beat them, that was apparently their Achilles heel. And holy cow, is it their Achilles heel? Because 6-1 is a crazy, first of all, 6 goals in a playoff game. That's a really high number of goals.
That's beyond embarrassing by the time you get to the.
And then the goal differential potential being a 5-goal spread. You're going to be seeing a lot more 1-goal, 2-goal games. And that's exactly what we've been seeing. Carolina was a 2-goal game. I think was Pittsburgh. No, Pittsburgh was a 1-goal game, right? That game was a 1-goal game. The Tampa game, 1-goal game. Boston, 1-goal game. Colorado, LA was a 1-goal game. I think it was a 2-goal game for Vegas. Like, this is what is normal. And I will be very curious to watch that game because I want to see how they respond, because I think that there was a lot of criticism over the fact that they didn't pull Otter, and it brought up this whole conversation online about this is what happened last year. And I kind of jokingly said online, of course, the new coach, he's not going to pull Ottinger because DeBoer did it and he got fired for it. Like I said it a little tongue in cheek, but now you're
that's a nerve.
right. And now you're watching this and you're like, wait a minute, is that really a thing where people aren't going to pull Otter? Because he should have been pulled.
He should have been pulled. He is a little inconsistent. Quite frankly, when he's on, he is on. Man, I was at the Colorado Stars game a couple weeks ago, and my gosh, it was like poetry on ice. He was so good that game. That was not what we saw the other night. And the thing was, it not only should it have been closer just in general, but like the Stars were pretty significantly ahead of the Wild in standings. It was only, they were 2 and 3, but 112 points compared to 104 points, that's a pretty big difference. So the fact that they basically got creamed, pull the goalie.
And this is, again, an outsider's perspective. They did not come prepared to play in the playoffs. I think that is an excellent example for new folks, especially when we say after 82 games, you throw away all of your knowledge of how that season went.
That's a new season.
Playoffs, day 1, game 1, whole new ballgame. It'd be a completely different situation. They play it differently. They approach it differently. A lot of players prepare differently. So to see a team that both teams, Minnesota and Dallas, have a good balance of veteran players who have been in this situation before in the very recent past. And to watch a team like the Dallas Stars, they didn't choke. They just were completely unprepared.
They didn't show up. They didn't choke. We'll get to that later from last night. But they just really, I think they weren't prepared. They didn't show up to play the playoffs. And this is why, though, the playoffs are so much fun.
Yes.
People say it all the time. Anything can happen in Stanley Cup playoffs. This is an example of it. Now, I will be interested to see how they come back. I can't even imagine their practice for the next 2 days. But I think that how they respond is going to tell us a whole lot about how this series is going to go.
Agree. Both the players and the coaching staff, because while we don't tend to think about the coaching staff all that much during the season, we don't really necessarily think about their decision making as part of the play on the ice. At least I don't. They're kind of background. They become part of the competition that you see out on the ice when it comes to the playoffs, because their decisions have a pretty direct impact on what's happening. And when you are playing best of 7, there is very little room for error. You can't just say, all right, that's something we'll work on for the next game. You can't approach it that way. And so let's just dive into the circus that was game 1 of we have to. I got to get it off my chest because I have no one else to yell at about this. But let's first talk about the coaching. And I've had a few hours now to digest the game, to bring my anger levels down and think about what I watched last night. And I got to say, and who knows, is this Sturm's style? Is this his inexperience being the head coach of an NHL team in the playoffs? I don't know what it is, but there was a moment last night where, as we like to say, it was a level 1 wheels falling off. Okay. It was the gif of the wheels are just wobbly on that wagon.
A jalopy, if you will.
Yes. So it was a level 1 situation where I believe it was either Buffalo had scored their first goal or they had scored their second. They were pretty close together because, again, like I said, the Bruins played 55 minutes of decent hockey. And then by our favorite Final 5, they just were like, what is hockey? They should have called a timeout, if not to regroup in the moment, at least to use it as a strategy to bring the stress levels down of the situation. You can use it strategically, and he didn't. And I was a little bit surprised, and I can't tell you if it would have made a difference, but what else do you have? What else do you have to lose? If you're going to lose, you're going to lose. Call the timeout, regroup, figure out what's happening, because all of a sudden, Boston, they had zero control over the game. And this is a team that has been slowly irritating me more and more in the month of April. We know that the Boston Bruins have struggled offensively since the break, at least. Cannot rely on them to score goals when they need to score goals. It doesn't matter who, whether it's your top line or your depth lines, nobody seems to be able to take advantage of opportunities or just make things happen. Some of it is bad puck luck, right? Last night, open net, broken stick.
Yeah, that's puck luck.
That's hockey gods. They hate us all. But you cannot, while we say that you have to have good goaltending, to go deep into the playoffs, you also still have to score more goals.
The whole point of the game, just in case anybody is listening, is to score more goals than the other team. That's how you win hockey. That is not what we saw last night. Consistently, this team has been inconsistent from day one at the beginning of the season. They've been streaky, and this is to a player.
Yes.
We are consistently inconsistent. So I think that what we saw last night was really an embodiment of that inconsistency. We were really on it for 50 to 55 minutes, somewhere in there, and suddenly we were not. We had some good stuff from our big guys that we're seeing. We saw the goals from the people that we wanted to see goals from.
Yes.
But we also saw some big turnovers from those same kinds of players. That McAvoy turnover, my God, that changed the course of the game. And to your point, having a timeout, having a minute, having a break, I feel like this a lot at the end of a period that's not going well. Thank God this period's over. We're going to go in the locker room. They're going to take a break. They'll come out. And sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. But you take a beat.
Yes.
Would it make a difference? Maybe not. But they didn't get a chance to catch their breath, to regroup, and to put a stop to the momentum on the Sabres. Either way, that's what that timeout is for. And we didn't get it.
Yes. What I will say that the Bruins did really well was, first of all, they had a fantastic first period. They came in, they were cool, calm, collected. Geeky did his thing. Thank God he is back, just for his own sake, if not our own. They clearly were the team dictating the pace of play. It was a good physical game. They had a good first period. Second period, as we expected, was the bumpy ride. They held on defensively. If it were not for Jeremy Swayman, they would have been probably more embarrassed than the Dallas Stars were in their game. Yeah. Their defense was okay. Their goaltending was spectacular, and their offense was mediocre at best. They had barely any offensive zone time in that second period. They really struggled to get in and maintain, but they held on. And for me, the very first goal that Buffalo scored, I'm not saying this necessarily as an insult. They only scored that first goal on a broken play by sheer luck. Like, you want to talk about puck luck. That was a puck luck goal, because that situation, and for those of you who don't remember, this was a situation where for some unknown reason, our two defensemen were below the goal line. And it reminded me so much of the first time that the Bruins played the Ducks in the fall. You know what? Let me actually go back and play this little clip from Maria from a snapshot back in October from that Anaheim game, because I think you're all going to be a little bit shocked at just how applicable what she said in October applies to what we saw last night. Take a listen.
The Bruins lost against a team that they should be able to beat. Stop me if you've heard that already. Thursday night's game was an embarrassment. Cam Neely needs to take this so-called vaunted defensive structure where he thought that this team would be so difficult to play against and light it on freaking fire. Because at this point, what I see is defensemen and forwards who look lost in our own end. And when I tell you lost, they don't seem to have a clue who is supposed to be doing what, which might leave our goaltenders wondering what the hell is going on here. Is someone going to play the man? Is someone going to take care of the puck, make a play on the puck? It seems to me, I'm not sure where this team goes from here. I'm sorry, that is excusable in my view. Excusable. And the so-called leaders on this team, and I'm talking about Charlie McAvoy and David Pastrnak and ever else in that locker room, thinks that they're a leader. They had better start playing like leaders. There's lots of blame pie to go around. I see forwards who are unwilling to back check and to make a play in their own end.
Both Chucky and Lori were below the goal line.
I remember that now.
That should never happen.
Yeah.
That should never happen. This is the second time. I'm sure, look, I don't know if it's actually the second time, but this is a second time that I remember distinctly that also involves Charlie McAvoy. So I don't know. Maybe that first time wasn't Lori's problem. Maybe the issue was Charlie McAvoy. But it wasn't even just the two, Chucky, and in this case it was Aspero, were both below the goal line, which again, big no-no. What also pissed me off was that our forwards were then also not taking over in a defensive position. I'm assuming, based on the two wingers who were out there, that Zacha must have been the center that was out there, but maybe he wasn't because of shift change. But Arvidsson was at the bottom of a circle. Mittelstadt was at the bottom of the other circle. Now, again, when we're talking about hockey logistics and plays and where positions are supposed to be, obviously your wingers, you want them a little higher up because if the puck squirts out, they
need to get there.
Fine. That is then the role of the center to play. That's why it's important that a center can play to a 200-foot game. It means he is both an offensive position and a defensive position. I remember watching that replay over and over again, and the fact that I knew where the two defensemen were and the two wings were, and I cannot tell you, I have no idea who the center was out there or where he even was. But if your two defensemen stupidly go below the goal line, your centerman then needs to take over the position of the defenseman and be in front, clearing traffic, watching the back door. Instead, all I saw was Victor Arvidsson standing there. And then I saw Mittelstadt come into frame. Why was Arvidsson just standing there? Where was the center?
This has been my problem with this team for the whole season is we do not seem to know what our positions are and where we should be on the ice based on that position. You're seeing one guy on either end by himself. Like no player, unless they're on a breakaway, should ever be by themselves. There's 5 players. You're generally paired up with at least one other person. You want to spread out a little depending on what the other team is doing. But as a rule, you've got a place on the ice that you are supposed to be. And if you are in that place, then people can find you, people can pass you, you can make a play, you become that playmaker depending, again, on your position, or you are in the position to stop any other plays from happening. Again, we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of people floating around by themselves, or we're seeing people standing there waiting for something to happen. Now, if he was in the place that was going to allow him to be part of the play, great, but he wasn't.
Which him?
Arvidsson. When you're talking about Arvidsson just standing there, he wasn't in position for something else to happen. You sometimes are in position right in front of the goal. Great. Then, you know what? Stay there because somebody will bring you and feed you the puck. That's not where he was. That's not the position he was in because the puck was not in a place to get to him.
Look, obviously there's a lot happening. And in that kind of play, in that situation that led to Buffalo's first goal, that was, we call it a broken play because it all of a sudden became a chaotic moment. That there was no set play. There was no like, you get into a formation and you do X, Y, and Z. No, in that moment, it is a mad scramble and there's a lot going on. But again, it just drives me bonkers that in a moment of chaos, where the heck was the center? I'm going to have to go watch that again because now it's going to bother me. But to just be standing standing there and waiting for what? This is where I'm still learning and trying to understand exactly the system Pat Sturm is all about, because it is very different from what we have seen Boston hockey be for the last decade. I don't know. Was he doing what he was supposed to be doing, and that was just a bad coaching decision? I don't know. But I can tell you that people not being where they needed to be obviously is the reason why that goal went in. Not because Swayman was necessarily beat in the moment. He did not receive the support during that play he should have received. Now, I will say, Buffalo's second goal, 100%, he got beat. He got beat. But you know what? What particularly pissed me off about this game is the fact that it felt like the Bruins players, forward skaters, were just hanging on and hoping to, beat out the clock because Swayman was having such a good game.
That's exactly what we did. We didn't play to win. We played not to lose once we had those 2 goals in hand.
Yes.
For those first 2 goals, we were playing to win.
Yes.
We came out with aggressiveness. We came out with
Third
some
period,
fire in our
great.
belly. They played well.
Scored.
Yeah, and they were playing to win. Once we had those, then they started playing not to lose. And that is not a winning formula, quite frankly.
No, especially if you consider the fact that Jeremy Swayman faced 38 shots. 38 shots. Now, I didn't look at the breakdown of when these shots occurred. I believe majority of them happened in the second period, which was, again, the holding on for dear life period. Fine. If we're going to have one period of the 3, that's got to be a hold on for dear life, and the defense can play their position correctly, that forwards can back check. That was another thing. The back check, it did not feel like they were back checking until the final 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Once Buffalo took the lead and got that third goal, only then did I feel like Boston was hustling back to back check. Only then. Now, the start of the game was very fast. I thought the pace of play was very good. I think that was, again, just game 1, period 1. Everyone's high on life. Second period, both teams really settled in. It became more of an even-keeled play. Third period, again, Boston, fantastic start, did exactly what we want to see. To your point, you go, you have the break, you come out, and boom, Lindholm. Fantastic. Then they were just, all right, we got to hold on. We don't need to add. We just need to hold on because Swayman's got our back. But you didn't have Swayman's back because you only had 20 shots on goal to 38. You cannot expect a goaltender to carry a team to a win when he faces 38 shots because his physical mental state after 3 hours of that.
Right. Now, the difference would be if we were also peppering on the other end.
Correct.
Because now both goaltenders are equally worn out, but that's not what happened. UPL was down there by himself for a majority of the game. We didn't have a lot of ozone. And then when our defense collapsed, that was the end of us.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's really frustrating about watching UPL play is, look, again, I'm not meaning to insult any of these people. I actually personally like that player. I think he entertains me. But I think he's benefited from a team in front of him that can be very aggressive. And again, the key for Boston to beating the Buffalo Sabres is to maintain their control of the neutral zone and shut things down. It's not a trap system. It's trap's cousin, neutral zone control. I don't know what it's called. But so if you are a goalie who has this team out front that's playing really aggressively, you're going to have a better season. And the goal save above expected for UPL was still 10 and a half. He was still a decent goalie, finishing with save percentage, a 909 and goals against average of 2.52. But if you've got a team in front of you that's super aggressive and they're able to go and score and stay at the other end, like we saw in the second period, Boston, and he's not then seeing a lot of traffic, it's going to make him look like he's better than I think he actually is.
When you look at these two teams side by side, advantage goalie goes to the Bruins, advantage team goes to the Sabres. That's just how it is. And we saw that last night, quite frankly. So we can't put all of this weight weight on Swayman. We just can't. He cannot carry us all the way to a Stanley Cup. We need him to at least carry us through this round.
Yeah.
And if they collapse with the defense like they did last night, Swayman can't carry that. And he shouldn't, quite frankly. That's too much for anyone to bear.
No. Jeremy Swayman did not lose that game.
The thing is, but you get peppered with 38 shots on goal. You can only stop so many of them. The law of average just says, I don't care who you are. Those are going to go in. When UPL is peppered with 20 throughout, then you know what? Guess what? He's going to be able to stop more of them. He's got more juice in his tank still. That's what it boils down to.
Exactly. The in-game gut check is the shots on goal. And that can tell me pretty quickly what team is present. And since the beginning of April, the last time the Boston Bruins had a game where they were even remotely close to 30 shots on goal was April 2nd against the Florida Panthers.
Oh.
Since then, it has been closer to 20 every game. And you're not going to win like that. You can only win with 20 shots on goal if the other team is also only shooting and getting 20 shots on goal.
Right. You've got to keep those closer. And I will tell you, I don't remember exactly how it played out, but they were ahead of us shots on goal basically the entire game.
Yes.
And it was surprising for a while that we were winning because they really were that far ahead of us shots on goal.
Yes.
So eventually that just catches up. That's what it is.
It does. Okay, 2 questions then. I got 2 more questions for you. I want to get your take on James Higgins in his first game because this is a kid who has played 2 games with Boston, right? 2? He got 2 in. And it seems like he is on this ramping up fast track. Granted, all the college kids who signed after their seasons had ended, they all had short turnaround times to sign and play and whatever. But he probably has the least amount of NHL experience at this point of all the new kids. And then, so he went from D1 hockey and then a couple days AHL and then a couple days NHL and then a couple days and now he's
in the playoffs.
What did you think of him last night? I have a thought, but I want to hear from you because you are our doctor of devs. So I want to hear your take on him and how he did.
So overall, I'm really impressed with how well he's doing since he came up. And again, is he setting the world on fire yet? He is not. But here's the thing, is he took a couple of days down in Providence, a few games down there. He needed that transition. He's going, and Sweeney said it, going from playing with boys to playing with men. He's still a little 19-year-old. I joke about the baby sharks. They are still the baby sharks. They're great.
Wow.
But when you look at them, they are still young men. They were developing. So with Higgins, I was there for his first professional game and he's 19. But that kid is where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And again, did he set the AHL on fire? No, not necessarily in his few games, but you could see his hockey sense. You could see him being where he was meant to be. He's got his head up. He's, guys, I'm right here. I'm open. Why aren't you giving me the puck? He's going to be a playmaker.
Yes.
And he is somebody who, because he is in the right spot, he can receive the puck, but he can also get the puck to where it needs to go.
Yes.
He is a natural center, but he's been playing the wing. So I think future casting, I'm guessing he's going to be our 1C. Fraser's going to be our 2C. That's my future cast. So we're going to see when that happens, but I think that's where he's going to end up getting set up. Now, did we see a whole lot from him last night that was impressive? Not necessarily. That line didn't give us a whole lot last night. I don't know what we're going to call them, but they're basically the young kids line. The 21 is the oldest person would be on that line. And I think that's amazing. So what I did see for him is he kept his cool. He was in his positions. He was not intimidated by his first playoff game. And that to me speaks volumes for what we're going to see from him. So that I'm really liking from him. He's fast. And a big thing we saw last night, the Bruins, not fast overall. And we've known this. Sabres, faster than we are. So now we're seeing Higgins can beat people to the puck. He can get there. I think we're going to see some good things. I think he's got his first game under his belt. I'm feeling this about the whole team. We got that first game under our belt. They generally come back pretty strong after a big loss. So I'm feeling okay about our upcoming game. But I think particularly for him, he's okay. I did this. I can do this. And I think moving forward, we're going to see some good things from him in this series.
I was very curious to see how the Bruins would manage manage him because during the regular season, I'll use Matthew Schaefer as an example. For the first half of the season, the Islanders really tried to protect him and make sure he was in a good place before they really started to let him go on his own and be a little bit more independent and not expose him, but let him then play like the big boys. There is obviously zero time for any kind of gradual entry into the truth of what NHL play is. And so I was a little bit surprised that he drew in, first of all, just because he is so green. He's so green. I thought I wouldn't have been surprised if they said, watch the first game. Just be in the building for the first game. Because Fraser Minten, this is his first time. Husnudinov, those are Higgins' peers, right? But they've also played a whole year. They know what to expect generally from the other team. They've played this team before. And then I was also still expecting him to not really get a ton of playing time. And actually, in our game day chat, someone had said, hey, has anyone seen Higgins for a while? It was after the first goal that Buffalo had scored. And so because I hadn't really seen him or heard his name, I thought, oh, they're shortening the bench. We're not going to see him again. And then sure enough, literally 2 seconds later, not only did I see him on the screen, but he had one of the best chances of the night. He didn't actually get a shot on goal, but he had a shot attempt. So I was like, oh, there he is. And then just looking at his time on ice, 11 minutes. Yeah. So that's legit fourth line minutes, a little bit more, somewhere in between third and fourth line minutes. And I'm a little bit surprised only because I guess maybe again comes down to the coaching. And I'm not saying that it was a bad coaching decision to put him out there. He didn't do anything that would have warranted a stapling of his butt to the bench. No. But looking at the spread of time on ice across all the players, it was pretty even and predictable based on their position, both literal position, defense forward, and position in the lineup. And so I also wonder if why then didn't Sturm at some point shorten the bench?
So I think there's a couple reasons for that, particularly for Higgins. When we're looking at Higgins, his season is going to be short. We don't have 82 games like with Schaefer. If he hadn't played this season and he comes in next season fresh, I think there's more protection that goes on. We've got 82 games. Let's bring him in gradually. Let's protect him a little more. They did that a little bit with Bedard. So I think because the minute that they brought Higgins up from Providence, I figured that they have decided they are playing him. And so once they did that, if they really wanted to protect him, they would have kept him in Providence at this point because he had the opportunity for 3 games. He only played in 2, and then it was going to be playoffs.
Yeah. And the other thing that I thought that was a bit of a surprise, besides Sturm not shortening the bench, which again, I'm always of two minds when it comes to that particular strategy. You do it when you have your guys who you knew are going to get the job done. And maybe he didn't because maybe he saw the writing on the wall because David Pastrnak, every chance he had, he could not score. Something was not right, whether it was a stretch pass that he just ran out of space.
Fine, it's playoff Pastrnak.
I know. And yet somehow he's still got 3 points. Like, I don't understand how I can watch this game and be so disappointed in David Pastrnak. But then I look at the stats and I'm like, oh, no, he actually did have a good game. It's just different pasta. I'm not used to this pasta. This is tortellini and I'm used to spaghetti.
Right. Yeah. Or you said
Interesting to see if Sturm stays the course or if he does anything different. I just wonder if he's going to manage his bench a little bit differently in this next game because I do think, and I'm assuming we're in agreement, that Boston has to leave Buffalo with a split series. They have to because of just how bad they've been on the road. If they have any shot of getting out of this round, they have to freaking win a game on the road. Have to. They can't just rely on home games.
We need 60 minutes of play. We need a win. I think that obviously just in general, you need the win, but I think also from a emotional standpoint, you come out with 2 losses, even coming back home where you're going to play better and do better, you just can't recover from that.
No. And you can't go into the next game for any team. This isn't just for the Boston Bruins. You can't go into any game thinking you have the breathing room, the time and space, because you shouldn't be making the assumption that you have 7 games.
No.
You should go into every game assuming that that is the last game. You have to assume that's the last game.
No, you go in expecting a 4-game series. Now, at this point, expect 5-game series.
And Boston, like you said, they just didn't treat that game like it was an elimination game.
Nope.
My last question then is, what do you want to see different in the next game besides the obvious win? Score more goals.
I'd like to see pucks go net.
If I'd only thought of that, I could work for ESPN.
There's a couple of things I'd like to see. One of the things I'd like to see is I'd like to see more consistency in 60 minutes of play. But I think where that starts is with our defense. Our offense needed to be better, but we lost because of defensive collapse.
Yeah.
I think that goes on both sides. I think we need our defense to be stronger, but I think we also need to have our offensive lines backing up our defense. And we didn't see that. So for me, that's the biggest thing that I want to see. I want to see more play from all 4 lines. Throughout the season, we've been seeing that. Different lines seem to get hot at different times. And again, that's just hockey. But I would like to see a little bit more production from the other 3 lines and not just the top line. It's interesting, though, because we have not been able to count on our top line all the time. In past years, you've been able to say, yeah, we'll throw out the perfection line and something's going to happen. I really want to see some new dad strength. We have 2 new dads. I did not see any evidence of that. Normally, you have a baby, you score a goal. That's just the way it goes. We did not see that. We actually saw the opposite.
That second line, which has arguably been the best line for the Bruins for a very long stretch, to use Maria's go-to statistic, they were a -3. So they were on the ice for all of the goals. For me, here's a couple of things then that I'm going to be looking for in areas of improvement that might give me some hope, because this is maybe a little bit more nitty-gritty. This is the little deeper dive. One thing that Boston did relatively well that I know they can be better in, face-off percentage. So in the last game, Boston won face-offs 50.8% to Buffalo's 49.2. We've got some really excellent face-off centers. They did a fine job. I want to see just a tiny bit more. So I'm going to be keeping track of that stat to see how the game is progressing. I thought one thing that I was worried about at a certain point was the penalties situation, because it was getting a little feisty. There were a couple of the stupid penalties that we have railed on all season, those stick infractions that are a result of lazy back checking, David Pastrnak. I'm okay with there being penalties in a game when they are game appropriate, right? Sean Corrali loved his game last night, loved his response to what was happening on the ice. Fantastic. Worth it, right? David Pastrnak with the reach. Dude, no. So I don't want to see any of those. Is that going to change? Probably not, because that's how they've been all season. The other thing that I want to see, the game started off really physical in an even way, but I was surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised to see that ultimately the Sabres just annihilated Boston when it comes to the hits. It was 53 Sabre hits to 38.
Yeah, that was actually a really surprising stat. I saw that too.
But then you look at the time on ice, and your guys who are basically designated tough guys, whatever the modern equivalent is of that enforcer, Tanner Jeannot, he played 8:21. Mark Kastelik played 10:51. Now, granted, they both had a few moments during the game where they were very noticeable in that regard, but what are we doing here, right? Nikita Zadorov was a much more effective hitter. And that's not surprising because of the man's size. But we need him to be focusing on the defensive aspect of the game. And we have Kastelik and Jeannot for a reason. So what's going on there? The blocked shots, I'm of the ilk that you only have a lot of block shots if you're not playing well defensively. And so having a lot of block shots isn't really a stat that you want to have a high number of.
You want to be stopping before you get to that.
And if you're throwing your body, then you're not on your feet to get it out of the zone.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So I want to see maybe fewer of those, but not at the expense of then allowing more shots on goal. So I don't really know what the answer is there. So those are kind of my big things, and better zone entry and taking control of the pace of play right away. I want to see a little bit more balanced play in that regard. But some of these things I think they more control over, and some of these things they don't.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we can beat UPL. They're going to keep him in. We can beat him, and we should.
Yes. We just got to pepper him. More shots on goal. Pucks and bodies to the net, as Brick likes to say. We need pucks and bodies to the net.
I want to end on a hopeful note, which is we weren't even supposed to be here at the beginning of the season.
True.
Now, I said we would. I'm on record somewhere.
You and me both.
But as a rule, we weren't necessarily supposed to be here. Buffalo wasn't supposed to be this good. Lots of things have changed here. Buffalo is number one in the division. We're a wild card. So the fact is we're coming in behind the 8 ball. Some might say we're playing with house money. I don't think so because we had a 100-point season. I think we still deserve to be here. I think we've shown again and again that we deserve to be here, even though some people say, oh, we barely got in. Nope, we got in solidly as a wild card.
Yes.
I do think that the fact that we're here, though, based on the beginning season, based on where we were supposed to be, hey, that's pretty good. But now that we're here, it's going to make me very sad if we don't get out of this round. And all of those things, I think, are the place where we all are right now.
Yes. If they can just organize their chaos a little bit better, like they were in January, this team has what it takes to have a respectable playoff presence.
Yes, there we go. I can live with that.
That's all we asked for. That's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Mary Beth, for joining me today. Maria will be back again next week. We might be doing a couple of updates throughout the playoff series as the games continue on. I'm optimistically hoping for a lengthy first round with Bruins on top as the outcome, but you never know. But as always, thank you everybody for listening. Make sure that you like and subscribe, leave us a rating and a review to help us get found by other Bruins fans and hockey fans. You can find us on all of our socials at Tape to Tape MK, and then find us on Substack at tapetotapemk.substack.com. Any final thoughts, Maribeth?
Just go Bees.
Go Bees.